So, good afternoon. Welcome to our digital learning series. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alan Whalen. I'm the Executive Director for the Office for Mission and Ministry in the District of Eastern North America, and this is the last of our 5 webinars focused on digital instruction and learning for August. Today we have Robert Zanneo, a math teacher from LaSalle College High School in the Philadelphia area. He is presenting on the topic of navigating distance learning, assessments and activities. We request, and it looks like everybody so far is there, that you mute your sound and please use the chat button if you'd like to ask Bob any questions during the presentation. And as time permits, we'll also have an opportunity for questions at the end. So let's get started. Bob, it's all yours.
Awesome, thank you. It's good to be with all you guys today. I'm sure, you know, as you're trying to plan for your upcoming school year, you got a million thoughts on your mind. I'm hoping I can shed some light on some of that. I've had the pleasure, I guess, of being in school for a couple of days now, so you know, I can give you some anecdotal evidence of what works, what doesn't work, and hopefully you come out of this with some information to ease some of your nerves and try to give you some ideas for assessments, activities, feedback, all the buzzwords you're going to hear me talk about today. Like Alan said, if you guys want to type some questions in the chat, I'll try to answer them as I go, as it pertains to the topic at hand. But you know, hopefully we have some time at the end as well to go through some questions. So let me share primarily PowerPoint today. I'll jump into some resources and things like that, but primarily going to start with a little PowerPoint here with some basic stuff to get us rolling. All right, so again, this is designed for either hybrid learning or virtual learning. I know depending on where you're at and the model you guys are going to be using, it could change, you know, week to week, month to month. So this is all designed for either hybrid or virtual. You'll see on the screen here a lot of the buzzwords you're going to hear today, a lot about feedback, engagement, assessments, activities, all the stuff that you're wondering about. And yes, there's a picture of my desk there equipped with all the essentials. You got your hand sanitizer, you got your a million technology cords to hook things up. You got everything you need. So it's going to be a new world for all of us. We're all going through it together. But that's what a virtual hybrid classroom setup looks like. Our desks are nice and socially distanced. It's the new norm, but it's good to truly be back in front of kids. And even if you don't have the opportunity early on, again, this is all good for virtual learning as well. All right, so let's kind of jump in here. A little overview of what's going to go on today. I'm going to highlight some things of my first week of hybrid teaching and learning, just to give you a little bit of insight as to, you know, how it's going down. But we're going to focus really in 5 areas. You know, promoting student engagement, providing meaningful feedback, creating a variety of assessments, designing diverse activities, and then just really being familiar with some different platforms or whatever LMS system that your particular school is going to use. I think it's really important to become familiar with that and just not assume you're going to roll in on day one and be comfortable navigating some things. So the emotions that are going through your mind as they were going through my mind, trying to get ready for all this, teaching and learning in this hybrid and virtual mode, you know, it's going to be challenging. But if, you know, we can interconnect these ideas, again, of engagement, feedback, assessments, activities. I picked those 4 because I really think they all intertwine in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of overlap in terms of what we do today. But as you see there from our great founder, St. John Baptist de LaSalle, you can perform miracles by touching the hearts of those entrusted to your care. And trying to put all this together as a teacher might feel like you're performing a miracle because the amount of work that's going to go into it. But, you know, you're going to have to do probably more planning, more time consuming things. And, you know, I'm hoping today I can give you some ideas to ease some of those concerns and really, you know, jumpstart some of your planning. So let me jump into week 1. So I am in day 5 or 6 of hybrid teaching here at LaSalle. And again, it's good to be in front of kids, but to be honest, it's completely different than anything we've probably all gone through as teachers. Again, I'm in my 9th year here at LaSalle. I've had great experiences in the math department. Again, everything I say today will be applicable to stuff outside of math, obviously, but you know, being in this classroom, this week, it's expect the unexpected. You know, when you walk in, you got to plan for things not working, students not being in front of you, students being sick, right? There's a lot that you just don't think about that, even though you feel like you did all the planning in the world, there's something that's going to come up in these first couple of days that you just have no idea how to handle. What's the protocol if this happens? What's the protocol if that happens? It's kind of learning on the fly. And outside of just the teaching and planning aspect, there's all kinds of housekeeping items to think about in terms of, you're going to have to sanitize desks. You're going to have to report this and that. Even if you're in virtual mode, there's more to think about, keeping the integrity of assignments and activities. And there's all these variables just outside of the content that, we all have to think about. Second thing, I think breaking that ice and awkwardness, I have, again, the luxury of being in front of half my students each day. The whole concept of wearing masks and getting guys involved has been a little dicey over these first couple of days, to be honest. The guys are warming up a little bit, but they're uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable wearing a mask all day, all right, but we got to do it. But even if you're at home, just a couple of ways you could think about to break the ice or awkwardness. Do you have some activities in your back pocket that you like to go to? For me, it's a lot of just general knowledge. Each day I try to do something a little bit different, similar to sports talk radio a little bit, some general knowledge on Wednesdays, some family feud style questions one day. Whatever you can think of to break that ice or awkwardness to start class, I found that to be really good, and that's really helped the interaction for the rest of class go well. I've used some of those. I know on Facebook you see these kind of puzzles going around that are all IQ related. Just looking for some different things to break that ice early on, because if you do it, I've really found to be successful these first couple of days that guys want to get involved into that and they feel more comfortable, even though it has nothing to do with the subject matter at hand. Sometimes they like that kind of stuff, which is I think great. As you can imagine, the technology aspect of things is not going to go great every day. This is stuff that we probably assume, but I can give you firsthand evidence. Yesterday, I had 5 classes throughout the day, and every single one of those classes, I got booted out of our LMS. Couldn't tell you why, couldn't tell you how. Took me a couple minutes to get back in, and you feel like, you're flustered, you start sweating. It's going to happen. All right, it's absolutely going to happen almost every day. You want to throw that keyboard through the screen, and it gets very frustrating. But just assume that if the technology, if it's not going to work every day, what's your backup plan? And it's going to feel like time's flying. You're trying to get back in, log back in, and get back on track. But those are the moments that are going to create those funny memories, the real memories that guys are going to have. So while you feel flustered and all over the place, I think those are the times where guys are going to remember some of the funny things that go on in class. It's going to happen. You got to try things. We're all planning these great activities and thinking about all these things we want to jam into our classes, and you just got to try them. All right, and the kids are receptive to them if you try new things. You're going to fail. I've tried a couple things in these first couple of days, putting guys in groups, trying to do assignments and assessments in some different ways here, trying to get some feedback. And I haven't been, overly successful in everything that I tried, but I wanted to put some things out there, see how the guys felt about it, collecting data using some Microsoft Forms, some surveys, some polling, some different things that, as a math teacher, it's easy for you to go old school paper and pencil. But during these times, I'm trying to collect data different ways. I'm trying to do some different things that may be more up to their speed than what we're comfortable doing. So, you just got to try, put yourself out there. All right? I know we hear it all the time, but, it's fun to try things. It's frustrating after putting, hours into planning a week out that it doesn't work, but how, what's going to work for next time. And, the guys are receptive to it. Your students are going to be receptive to it. The one big thing, I feel like this first week, you're going to feel like you're teaching in slow motion. I know we probably all went through some virtual stuff at the end of last year, and hopefully we all get the chance to do some hybrid, at least in the coming weeks. It's just going to feel like you're teaching in slow motion. You have all this stuff you want to get through, and to just get answers to questions sometimes takes an awkward amount of time for guys virtually to answer. That's what I've been realizing these first couple of days. The guys in front of me, they're ready to go right away. And as a teacher, it's easy for me to want to pick on those guys because they're right there and it makes, things go quicker and we keep it moving. But that awkwardness of you ask a question, you try to get the guys involved virtually or guys who are at home. And it just feels like an awkward amount of time, but it's good time. It's time for guys to digest what's going on. And it really gives those guys at home a chance to really know that they're involved in the class. I found myself at times going 15, 20 minutes at a time, not trying to get those guys at home involved. And it can really cause them to be disengaged, and a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how do you engage them? And I think engagement starts with try to just, I'm a cold caller. I like to cold call. That's kind of my style, especially to get the virtual guys involved. And it works. Sometimes you catch them, they turn on their microphone, they're watching a show or something like that. But, you're trying to get them back engaged in the lesson. But it's going to feel like at times you're going in slow motion. and you got to accept the fact you might be a bit boring. I feel like the first couple of days I'm teaching from my desk. I'm using our LMS platform. I'm doing a lot from my desk, which goes against everything I believe in. I'm a wanderer. I like to walk around, make my presence felt. But it's okay if you feel a bit boring. I think we'd rather be boring and be somewhat effective communicating material than really trying to do too much. Yeah, we want to try things, but it's okay at times for chunks of a lesson to be a little boring until we all get the hang of how this hybrid or virtual is going to work. And the kids will respect it. The kids know we're trying. They know we're putting a lot of energy and effort into it. All right, we'll talk a little bit later about how we get some feedback on that. And the last one here, how do you make students, if they're in front of you in hybrid mode, feel safe or engaged virtually so they can focus on the task at hand? I think that's one of our biggest struggles that we'll get into today. And, having the guys in front of me, sanitizing the desks and sanitizing your hands and cleaning things off, trying to make them feel safe and welcome and not thinking about the virus is part of our job, even though it has nothing to do with content. All right. And even at home, you want to make sure you're making them feel, safe and welcome and give them a platform to get involved. We don't want to create an environment where they're overwhelmed or, they're really not wanting to put themselves out there and get involved. It's much easier said than done, but hopefully some of the things I talked to you today about can help you do that. But they're the 5 or 6 things that in this first couple of days that I've been thinking about how to get better at and how to do, and hopefully thinking about some of the stuff I give you here throughout the next half hour, 45 minutes will help with that. So that's week 1 in a nutshell. And then we're going to kind of jump in here to, again, our 4 major topics of engagement, feedback, assessment, and activities. All right, so we've had the fortune or misfortune, depending how you look at it, of having to go through plenty of professional development this summer. All right, it was great. It was very informative, but it was almost information overload. And what I tried to do, I tried to pull some stuff that I thought really stuck to me throughout it. We had to take a couple courses through ISTE. We had to take a couple courses through there. And our school actually put a course together trying to help us internally with assessments, activities, feedback, engagement, all the stuff I'm going to talk to you today about. So I'm pulling some resources from them. A couple quotes and things that stuck out to me. The first one here, when you're trying to sit down and really think about planning as you guys start back to school here in the next couple of weeks, it's all about meaning making. Think of yourself less as a teacher and more of a designer of meaningful experiences, right? That's what we're all here to do. And even though the book I stole this from is called Teaching College, it's definitely applicable to the high school setting. And even when we're doing this hybrid and virtual, it almost feels like we're treating some of our classes as college classes, putting a little bit more accountability on the students, maybe a little bit more lecture than you're used to just because of the way it's going to work. But, if you can think of this as meaning making, right? Think of yourself less as a teacher and more of a designer of meaningful experiences. The more meaningful the experiences we create on a daily basis, the more likely that material is going to sink in and have meaning for these students. So just something to think about as you're starting to put together some tentative plans, as I'm sure your plans are all over the place, as were mine, and continue to be here until we get in a nice little routine. Second thing to think about, and I think this is a big one, especially because we don't know how much we're going to be able to interact with our students, depending, like I said, month to month, week to week, the guidance from different districts is probably going to change. The whole idea of empathy, it's an essential skill that, we all are trying to evolve with. We need to think like consumers. We got to market to our students. We got to try to do what we can to get them to invest. You got to think about how are they going to experience this lesson? I know for me, a lot of the times, I know what it looks like when I deliver things. Even when I hopped on the Zoom call, I was usually on the other side of the Zoom call. I'm not, I wasn't really sure how to share the screen and do some things. That's kind of how the students feel on the other end, right? We know what it looks like when we're delivering information on our platform, but maybe think about what's it going to look on the back end of their platform, or my resources all over the place. Are things not in order for them to understand? Is it nice and clear? Things, just little things to think about. What are they going to leave with? What will stick the most, the longest? Just try to focus on those essential things. And how can you create a better experience, right? That's what we're trying to do every day. When we reflect at the end of the day or end of a week, man, it was a really bad week, really good week. Just jot down what's good, what's bad. I know it's somewhat self-explanatory, but I think the big thing is we got to ask the students. After a couple of lessons, checking in with them, they'll respect you way more than if you're just pumping through material and going and going and going. I know my guys, they've told me, look, at times you talk 1,000,000 miles a minute, and at home virtually, you sound, a little faster than you do when I'm in front of you. Right? So just assume, I should say, don't assume that everything's all good. Even for those quiet guys, we got to find a way for those quiet guys virtually to really voice their concerns and really let you know what works, what doesn't work. It's all about trying to get feedback from them so we can make ourselves better. And it's got to be early and often. All right? early and often to help our lessons flow a little better so we don't dig ourselves a hole and have a lot of guys falling through the cracks. So just think about the idea of empathy, having those meaningful conversations. I'll talk more later, but in talking with colleagues, if you can find a way throughout a semester or even a year to find time to sit down with each of your students, I think that would be a tremendous way to create some empathy in relationships. It's not feasible all the time. I completely understand that. But in talking to some other colleagues from other departments, even virtually, if you can break them up into individual groups or have some office hours or whatever we think could make sense to create these relationships, it's going to be time consuming. But from feedback I've received from colleagues, doing that and just having those conversations, you're going to get much more out of that kid trying to check in. Again, once a semester, is that feasible for 100 or so students? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think it's something to think about, just to put on your radar. And the third and last planning consideration here. You got to plan with student motivation in mind, right? We got to figure out what motivates them, how to engage them. All right, positive relationships, right? We all hope for that positive relationship. We want that kind of relationship to evolve so that they're very proactive in asking for help and needing help and giving you feedback and us giving them feedback, right? It's all about voice and choice. Much easier said than done, right? You want to just go with the great activities you created and just pump through stuff, right? But you got to give them some voice and choice. Can they create an activity? Can they choose one day the order of the topics we go? Can they present a lesson or, give up your control for 15, 20 minutes at a time and let them navigate the class through a couple things? Giving them a voice goes a long way and them wanting to come back for more. And believe it or not, some of the research that we've come across here, some of this professional development, the extrinsic rewards and the consequences actually hamper motivation. So I know we like giving out bonus points and homework passes and however you want to structure your classes, but, at times, giving those rewards can be, negative. They got to believe they can improve in their tasks. And as much as we can, as a math teacher, I try this as much as possible because it's the only way it sticks. Can we make things relevant to their lives? Can we use platforms and social media and other things to promote things we're doing in class? The more you make this applicable to the things that are at their fingertips every day, the more your content's going to sink in and the more they're going to want to be engaged and involved in what we're doing. So we got to create some more relevance to their lives in order for them to kind of want to come back. All right, our first big topic here, the idea of promoting engagement. For me, this is something when I sat down in the summer, I know as a math teacher I can be boring. All right, you want to get through stuff like I've been saying these couple slides, but I really sat down and putting some resources together. I came up with to try to consolidate 10 different ways that are feasible in any subject matter to promote engagement. As I said earlier, starting off class with some kind of trivia question or question of the day. When they log in and they see that question up there, or you want to put it on as everyone logs into class and use it as a bonus opportunity, whatever, however you want to use it. I really found that guys like this and vary it up. You can do sports, you can do science, you can do whatever you want to make them feel, just a nice ease in the class that have nothing to do with your subject matter. Number 2, provide the purpose for the lesson. Write out your objectives or your goals for the day. All right, having that on the board, when you're in person is easy. When you're at home, virtual class or hybrid, I know you don't want to waste time, but it's important that they know what they're getting into on a daily basis. Explain the activities and clear rationale for what's going on. I always have to tell my guys, look, we're doing 3 things today. We're going to start with this. We're going to go here. We're going to go there. Whether they remember that or not, I think it's important that they realize they're not just going to be sitting there listening to me for a while. They know we're going to go from topic to topic or from activity to activity, which we'll talk about later. And as we all know, breaking things into chunks if you're doing a longer block in a virtual learning, we're doing 60-minute blocks for our hybrid stuff here. It's different, but you got to chunk it. 10-minute, 15-minute chunks. If you talk for more than that, they're not retaining anything that we need. Obviously, we all know that, but it's hard, especially when you're trying to figure out what to cut in your curriculum. And again, you're just going to want to go because you have so much on your mind and you got to get to this section. We got to do this by the first semester. But if you chunk it up, again, what you get to, you get to. I know there'll be consequences later, but that's what the collaboration is in our departments and things like that will help with that. Number 5 here, think of ways to gauge comprehension. Obviously we all do it in different ways in different subject matters, but we'll talk about a couple different ways to gauge that comprehension with simple features of your learning management system. Can you have kids raise hands, polling questions, using chat features, different things that they can do quickly to gauge their comprehension. Number 6, at the end, before you just log off and move on with your day or move on to your next class, can you summarize the key takeaways after each lesson and foreshadow what's next? In math, it's easy for me sometimes. This is what we ended with. Here's how it connects to tomorrow. But other subject matters, can you foreshadow what's coming next? Guys like to know what the connections are from day to day. They're not independent lessons. I think the most difficult one in our current situation is promoting that community within your classroom setting. It's easy when everybody's in the classroom. The inside jokes, the funny moments, getting through material, the guys who love to answer questions, the guys who like to hide. That's all nice and easy when they're in front of us. But when you're trying to promote that community aspect, to try to get the guys at home to get involved with the guys in front of you if you're hybrid, or even at home, everyone's virtual. Sometimes when I logged on, last year during March, April, and May, no one wanted to put their cameras on, and everyone just wanted to get to the material or whatever. But if you have them have their cameras on and really interact with each other, it's going to go a long way in just a better, seamless year. And you got to ask for feedback. As much as we want to be vulnerable, we're asking our students to be vulnerable. Right? We got to ask them for feedback. And there's so many different ways you could do that. It could be simple one-on-ones. Go to the students that you're most comfortable with at first and ask them. Go to the students who you feel like are a little lost and disengaged. Ask them, what they think is working or not working. I think a lot of that can go a long way. You got to be flexible and open. You got to be open to change. You got to be flexible in what you're doing, and just know that you're going to have to pivot a lot throughout a class. And we're going to have to get used to that new norm. And it's just something that, in virtual and hybrid, there's no other way to do it. You got to be flexible, got to be open. And again, giving students that choice. Can they present? Can they write on your whiteboard through your learning management system? Can they upload a resource and do a voiceover similar to what I'm doing now? What can they do that's going to give them some power and maybe even educate other guys throughout the class? I think that's important to figure out, as you go through your learning management system and play with some things, how you're going to be able to do some of this stuff, because I really think it can go a long way. Now, how does that get intertwined with feedback? So like I said earlier, engagement, feedback, assessment, activities, they all get intertwined. We all hear about feedback and we all have our comfortable ways of doing it. There's no real flow to this, what looks like chart on the screen, but I think all these things talking about feedback are somewhat interconnected. All right, we know it's got to be ongoing. It can't just be the blurb on a paper. It can't just be the mistakes on a test. Right? It's got to be ongoing throughout the year and build on things throughout the year. The idea of formal versus informal. Those formal conversations or those formal feedback that you give on a paper, on an assignment, things like that. They're all great, but also that informal feedback, those quick yes or no's, those quick, those really probing questions you ask in class. They can promote that informal feedback that, they're not necessarily going to always remember, but more so than just the stuff you write back on a test or something you're going to give back to them. That informal feedback and those probing questions, I think, go a long way. Are you comfortable polling and doing some surveys? We are a Microsoft school here at LaSalle, and we do a lot of Microsoft forms. That's the easiest resource for me to build out and get quick feedback. Instead of wasting time making copies of things and giving out everything by hand, a quick form, a quick survey, a quick poll, that gets instant feedback. Even when you're wondering if guys at home are even paying attention. Hey, guys at home, are you with me? I don't need 27 chat things going off or 27, they could raise their hand real quick. There's a raise hand option on the platform we use. And it's just one quick way to just, check in and give them some feedback. Discussion boards and forums, depending on your subject matter, obviously that could be applicable or not. Look, sometimes in math, I try it just to explain your reasoning and give me some more detail. It doesn't always work, but I try to throw it in there to give them some varying things to think about. But discussion boards and forums, getting different guys involved. You can chime in, they can chime in. It's not just feedback from me, it's feedback to each other. I think that can be really important. Are you adapt to do some quick multiple choice checking questions? We'll talk about exit tickets in a minute, but I think a lot of times, can you do a quick exit ticket on the screen? Are you comfortable building some things out? Using, again, the different advantages of the platform that you're using. We use OpenLMS here through Blackboard. It's got a lot of features. I know some schools are using Google Classroom, Schoology. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can do some quick things on. What features does your platform have? All right, can you chat, raise hands? What's the best way to go back and forth without creating chaos and wasting time and getting off track of your lesson? Exit tickets are great. I love them as a math teacher. It's a very easy way for me at the end of a lesson to pose a question or two to see if they got those main takeaways. Other classes, it's easy to do as well. Quick little blurb in an English class or history class. The main takeaways for today. What didn't you understand today? There's a couple different ways you could vary it, but I think exit tickets, although it creates more work for us, because we've got to go back at the end and obviously read a bunch of different things, but it's going to create more meaningful lessons to learn from what went on, good or bad, in that previous lesson. As a math teacher, I focus sometimes on problem sets, weekly or bi-weekly. This could be applicable to other classes. Every couple of weeks, going back to the stuff you talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago, can you make connections to a problem set or some kind of essay where you're integrating different things from a quarter or a semester? Being able to go back and forth, I think, is huge. And again, as I said earlier, can you meet with them one-on-one? Right, that feedback, that one-on-one is going to be ultra, ultra important. And as you're thinking about all that, these are the 4 questions that, as you're thinking about feedback, the 4 questions that you got to constantly come back to. What can the student do? What can't the student do? Right, they're the obvious ones. Right, when you have a student who's struggling or excelling, what can they do? What can't they do? How does this student's work compare to the work of others? And how can the student do better? Those are the 4 overarching questions, I think, when you're thinking about feedback. That's what you have to really frame your conversations with students about, or frame your feedback with. Some other ways to think about on the screen here. Again, these are just, I'm trying to consolidate a bunch of different things I've come across here. Asking those 4 questions is great. The one that jumped out at me, just the wording of how you give feedback can make students feel uncomfortable or comfortable. Obviously, we want them to be comfortable. But think about your wording. You don't want to be too harsh. You want to get your point across. I remember back in the day, one of my 8th grade teachers one day, just face to face, said, your writing sucks. And I was really taken back. So, did she really just say my writing sucks? And from that day on, just the way she delivered it, it was a little mean at first, but she was sincere about it. And that really inspired me to want to become a better writer. So just think about the way you deliver things. It could be good, could be bad, but just they all have meanings for different students. And the weird one that I don't think a lot of us are comfortable doing, ask for other students to give some feedback. You want to provide some basic groundwork and make sure it doesn't get too, personal or off topic, but student-to-student feedback can be important on different things. So just, again, some other ideas on the screen here to think about feedback and ways to really, interact with our students. Right? So engagement and feedback together, a lot of overlap. They they go hand in hand. But if we don't do those 2 things, the assessments and activities we do hopefully help us engage our students, help us give feedback. But without those 2 things, it's going to be a difficult year. All right, now the fun part. All right, thinking about assessments. All right. Obviously, the big ideas with assessments. I have 4 different quotes on the screen here from different research I've come across here at preparing for this year. My natural math tendency, I had to put a little graph up there, a little coordinate plane to separate these. But first one in the upper right there. The more assessments that happen, the more positive the effect on student achievement. Teachers should test less, but assess more. And I had trouble wrapping my head around that at first, to be honest, because you sit down in the semester, I got to get 10 tests, and I got to get 5 quizzes, 5 tests in a project. You have all this on your mind of what you want to do. And then you look at a quote like this and it says, teachers should test less, but assess more. I think it's hard to break away from your old habits when we're teaching, face-to-face instruction, but we got to do a lot of different things. We got to do a little bit more project-based, a little bit more student-based stuff here when we're talking about assessments. So I know we want to pump out assessments and make sure we have enough grades. That's definitely important, but we got to think about ways to test less and assess learning without hinging it to a traditional test or quiz, which I know for a lot of us is hard. Talk about a couple of different ways to do that here in a few minutes. On the upper left there, the better the teacher gets at assessing, the better the students achieve. So tweaking your assessments, tweaking the wording of your assessments, tweaking the way that you're designing the questions. Anything we can do to be different but effective is going to go a long way in helping them get to the next level. Think about what they're going to need as they go from English 1 to English 2, or as they go from Algebra 1 to Algebra 2, or whatever the connections are. What they got to get through, the material they have to get through. Can we find a way to get better at assessing that in different ways? And again, I'm going to give you some ideas here in a few minutes. Down the bottom left there, consider how multiple parallel assessments can better determine truer indicators of knowledge. Right, so parallel assessments, you want to think about a couple different ways to get to that same outcome. Parallel assessments can better determine truer indicators of knowledge. Students might struggle and feel pressure at home. If you try to give a timed quiz and that timer's churning in the corner, they might feel some type of way about that. But if you give that same type of assessment in a different manner, ask differently, ask them to explain themselves in a forum that's not essentially time-stamped, you might get better information out of them. You might get more knowledge. You might get a deeper sense of what they know and what they don't know. So just think about different ways, parallel ways to maybe ask or assess the same thing, but trying to make everybody comfortable. All right, and the last one here. Don't forget about the previous topics of inquiry-based or project-based assessment. So, during all professional development over these past couple months, we've been hearing about these inquiry-based and project-based, and then, like I said, it's easy as a teacher to go back to your normal ways and your old school ways. But if we don't start thinking about some creative ways to integrate this into the real world and do some inquiry-based and project-based stuff, we're really leaving our students at a disservice to not fully get things, get out of class what they should get. All right, so those are the overarching ideas of what I'm going to talk about here in terms of assessments and some ideas I have for you. So just a general idea, and again, your school might put out some different ideas, but in general, I try to consolidate what I think makes sense. So in a cycle or in a week or however your classes are broken down, I think it's, you got to try to have some kind of major or minor each week. If you go a full cycle without trying to tap into students, they're getting so much information and trying to figure out this new norm that by the time you assess on it, you're probably not going to get a true indicator of what they remember. Something minor, something major. A major could be a project. A major could be a traditional test or quiz. We're going to need those. But something minor, an exit ticket could be considered a minor assessment at times. A little problem set. You're 3 days into a lesson, asking 3 questions that connects Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That could be a little mini assessment. For points is great. We can also give assessments that just, again, assess knowledge and are not really worth anything in the grade book. That's okay. What's essential to learn? What skills are needed? All right, what's the most interesting content? You're going to have to edit, obviously, old tests and quizzes to accommodate what's going on in this virtual and hybrid mode. So as you're doing that, you got to go back to your objectives. You got to, you're going to hear me say in a second, you're going to actually have to start backwards. One of the most uncomfortable things for me is, looking at some of this research is starting with the assessment and creating that first. What are the big main ideas? And then backtracking and using that assessment to create whatever your lessons are going to be. And I think that's a weird and funky one, but an important one. And how are you going to plan for all this? How are you going to measure the learning? Plan assessments and instruction, right? Similar to what I just said. As weird as that sounds, it's uncomfortable for me. It still is. Maybe look at a test you gave on chapter 1. And then go look at that test, edit it, what's really important, and then backtrack to how you're going to plan that lesson. It's going to help you cut your curriculum in an efficient manner, 1. And 2, it's going to make your lessons more engaging because you're cutting out the fat. Not that what we were doing before was wrong, but you're going to have to sit down and cut out some fat and really get to the nitty gritty of what do they need to be successful in the next unit, in the next chapter, in the next class, in 2 years when they need this information to build on. Just think of some different ways that it's going to have to be applicable. And I think that's one of the biggest things you can take away from this assessments concept is just going backwards, as awkward as that's going to be. We've probably all seen this graph in some fashion with some different verbs in there. I know it's ingrained in my memory from a lot of our professional development here at LaSalle. Just rethinking assessments in these uncharted waters. What is it? It's part of the learning process. When you look at that cycle on the screen, we instruct, we practice. Feedback, assessment, feedback, revisit. Right? This is the cycle we kind of all go through or should be thinking about going through. It feels like it can be time consuming at times, but this is kind of the cycle of how things work. We've all heard of summative versus formative, different types of assessments to give. Again, that quick question you ask in class, while it doesn't feel like an assessment that's tied to a grade, the way you ask questions can be types of assessments. The way you ask questions lead to feedback. Summative assessments, projects, tests, quizzes, large papers, things like that can certainly be summative. But formative on a daily basis, what are some quick things you can do to be, formative in assessments to see if guys are understanding what's going on. And we'll talk about some activities here in a few minutes that'll help you do that. As far as the feedback, I keep coming back to it. I know, I'm sorry, but it's key. Even in this cycle, feedback's there twice. It's there twice because that's the only way you're going to know if your assessments are effective. It's the only way you're going to know, do I need to revisit this topic and revamp my assessments or revamp some of my activities I came up with? You know, think about how you're going to grade some of these. When we do get to the nitty gritty of grading these assessments, you know, is it applicable if I give a multiple choice question, if that guy got 8 out of 10, does that really show, like, does he only know 80% of what's going on? So just think about how you're going to structure, you know, using rubrics. It's uncomfortable for some, but necessary. You know, using very detailed, clear rubrics with point values and letter values, whatever you're going to decide to do. You know, just think about as an 8 out of 10, that kid goes, man, I feel like I knew this. I got an 80. Man, 7 out of 10, I got a 70. Again, going back to that parallel idea, is there another way you could do that to assess that kid's learning? Because maybe he did know more than 80% of the material. He had a bad day or the timer was running down and he felt a little overwhelmed with what was going on. You know, just some different ways to think about how are you going to grade this, maybe a little differently than just doing the default, the quiz I made on this online forum. They were all worth a point. It's either right or it's wrong. Is there a way for them to show their work? Is there a way for them to explain themselves so they can get a little more credit? Things like that. The dreaded slide, the blooms. We've all seen these blooms verbs and we're sick of coming back to them, but I think it does help them when you're trying to create some authentic, secure, good assessments. All right, so when we're thinking about some bloom stuff here, all right, creating, comparing, contrasting, evaluating, applying knowledge, explaining, think we've all seen them. At times we all go to those bloom verbs when we're trying to create questions, but especially in this digital platform, having clear, concise questions using some of these verbs can make our assessments a little better, in my opinion. You know, I know we're all worried about authenticity and security stuff with some of these, you know, online assessments, and you know, each school and each individual has different ways of policing that. You know, but just some general ideas of, you know, students got to have their cameras on at all times. When they're submitting things, obviously for papers, there's different software you can use and things like that. But, you know, none of that matters if you're not using, you know, the good, deep Bloom's verbs to help you, you know, come up with good, clear, concise questions, rubrics, directions. I think it all goes together. You got to make it personal. All right. Reflections, applications, things that go deeper than, again, just that traditional paper and pencil test and quiz. Because let's be honest, a semester or year of all that is going to be very taxing, one, on you to collect and do things and upload and give feedback, but for them as well. It's going to get very boring. All right, I got a test today. I'm going to do it at home. Even though I'm at home, it feels like I'm in school doing the same type of test. All right, thinking about some different ways to get through to them, and I'll give you some more ideas here in a second. I found this one interesting. One of the resources we were given, which I'll share here in a few minutes, these upgraded assessment types, you know, really thinking about hybrid and virtual learning assessment types. Some of these you probably never even thought of, depending on your content field. But as I'm looking through these, there's a million different things out there just on this list alone that, one, may not be applicable, but two, are just totally different than anything I would ever think about, especially as a math teacher. You know, there's all different kinds of things out there. You know, even simple things as using a Prezi versus a PowerPoint. We know PowerPoints can get boring sometimes. You know, using a Prezi to spice things up is something simple that guys can certainly do. You know, a lot of graphic organizers, graphics and imaging, stuff that we probably do, but some of these other ones on here that I would never even think about. You know, screenplay, would never think about that. Other ones that jumped out at me, you know, different ways to collaborate through your learning management system. You know, some blogging and some forum is an obvious one. But give those, especially the tech students you have that are really hands-on with that stuff, you can always ask them for ideas as well. They usually have some good ideas that are applicable, but also give them a chance to showcase their knowledge in a way that they're comfortable. A lot of guys like to communicate in the digital space. You're going to have a handful of students that when they're reading this, they know how to do every single thing that's on the screen. We might know how to do 10 of them. But these are ideas that you can kind of use it to springboard for conversation in your class, or give those guys that are really, you know, tech savvy a way to showcase their knowledge. Now, as far as some activities, and we know assessments and activities are intertwined. Some of these are applicable to assessments. Some of these are applicable to activities. I try to, pull my department and some other departments as well and think about what things are easy to implement on a daily basis. And I know some of the other webinars went into them, so I won't go into crazy detail with some of these. But the top couple are nice, easy ones to use on a daily basis. If you've never gone on to quizzes.com, it has all types of interactive quizzes in all content areas that can be used to review. I've used them last year in the virtual mode to quiz. You can edit the questions. You can make your own questions. You can edit the times. You can do basically anything you need to do to make that applicable to students so they're not overwhelmed, again, with the timing aspect. It's a really cool, I use it a lot in math because it has a lot of preloaded topics and questions. But if you don't like one there, you can edit them. You can chop them down. You don't have to use the questions they gave you. You like 5 questions from this one and 5 questions from that one. You can combine a couple together. If we have time, I'll pull it up here at the end. But that's one of my favorites. It has just preloaded stuff. Somebody only have to think about it. It's nice for the topic at hand that you're doing. We've probably all tried Kahoot at some point. Kahoot and quizzes are kind of similar. And basically both of them, what it is guys log in. You give them a little code that comes up. There's a code that goes with each of them. You give them a code, and it just creates an interactive platform for them to answer questions. It's a nice little competition. It creates a scoreboard. Guys, are competing versus one another. I like to use it a lot for review, like I said earlier. But it creates a nice interactive, competitive environment to really, assess kids or just use it as an activity to break the ice a little bit. Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a kind of video software where students can create videos. It's basically a digital version of doing a platform. So even if you gave a homework assignment on any content area, they can create what's called a Flipgrid video, and it's just a little blurb, 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is. It's really software that creates nice, easy, clippable videos that students can use to upload instead of just having them write out things. It's a way they could give you feedback. You could give them feedback through a Flipgrid video, but Flipgrid is one of the easiest video softwares to use. I'll be honest, as a math teacher, I've tried it for a couple different things related to feedback. I like it. It's just sometimes not applicable to the content area, and that's okay. We've all used discussion boards, but again, just think about how you're asking those questions. How are you posing the discussion board? Is everybody getting involved? Are different students giving feedback to different students? Or are you just giving the feedback? You can create a lot of activities designed around those discussion boards that can stimulate a lot of good conversation. Video submissions. Any activity that you do involving video, I think students, one, they're going to like to see each other, especially if you're in virtual mode and they're not seeing each other as much. But any type of video submissions, obviously you got to put parameters on that, length, content, be professional, all that stuff. But any kind of video submissions, I think it's good. Some self-assessments. Have students reflect on, are they really pulling their weight with the work? And just think about having them sit down and give them some kind of self-assessment. I think that's a good activity to end a cycle or end a week with on a Friday. One of my favorites, we probably all use it, think, pair, share. Obviously during these COVID times, doing a lot of maneuvering of desks or things like that, if you're in hybrid, is probably not ideal. But even at home, there's probably a way in your LMS platform to put kids in groups of 2. Having them think about it, pairing them up and sharing their ideas, and having them alternate pairs throughout the week or throughout a cycle. Maybe have them stick with one guy throughout a cycle. Whatever you think makes sense. A lot of think, pair, share. You have them think about the situation, have them evaluate a problem, have them evaluate a prompt, pair up with someone, share their ideas. And those interactions, they're priceless. I like to use graffiti walls a lot in math for the vocabulary. Guys in math think vocabulary is awkward and not applicable, but this, again, any subject matter. You're starting a new content area. Right on that whiteboard, write a word. And at home, hopefully they can either use the chat feature or some way to interact with you and just start having some words. What do you think of when you see the word Hamlet? Or what do you think of the word when you see shake? Whatever it is, whatever you're doing. That graffiti wall and that graffiti board of just getting a lot of words out there that can create a lot of discussion and see where guys are thinking. Easy way to get guys involved. Something I'm definitely trying this week is having a classroom set of whiteboards. So if you're in hybrid mode, obviously the group work situation is not going to be ideal, but student whiteboards. We have a classroom set of whiteboards. They hold up their answers. Guys like to look around and see who's way off, things like that. It creates good little competition in the class as well. But it's applicable to other subject areas. Just having that little whiteboard where guys hold them up, get involved. more applicable there to hybrid mode, certainly than virtual mode. I'm a huge fan of breakout groups. When I show you a little bit of, to end here in a few minutes about the platform I have, there's a way to break guys into groups, and it randomizes the groups. Again, if your platform doesn't have that, there may be a way to break guys up and have them interact, privately and talk to each other. But having breakout groups where guys don't know who they're getting paired with on a daily basis, and having 4 guys interact together and just talk, they may be sick of listening to you. All right, that's okay. All right, it's definitely a great way to plan some activities around. Some other ideas. Padlet is kind of similar to a graffiti wall. Padlet's, again, some software you can use to, it basically looks like a wall of Post-it notes that we can build on to add ideas to. It's just a little bit more interactive discussion board type idea. I have not messed around with Google Jamboard, but I know that's, again, very similar to the combination of a whiteboard, Padlet. Some of these ideas overlap a little bit. Loom is kind of another video software similar to Flipgrid. I have not really messed around with Edpuzzle, but there's some different resources on there. A couple other ideas I like to use as well. As a math teacher, Pass the Problem. Again, not just applicable to math, but Pass the Problem. You could create folders in your class where, there's different types of problems in it, and each group gets a different set. And by the end of class, they go through 4 or 5 rotations, and you get way more content done than if you were to just break guys up and do this, do that. It's just a way to break things up where you could have 4 or 5 different things getting done in a class. We all like to try Jigsaw at times. Virtual learning Jigsaw could be great. You assign a couple different people a couple different topics, and then they're responsible for, quote unquote, teaching guys that are responsible for different topics than what you started with. So we've all probably gone through and heard in some of our classes about this idea of Jigsaw, but you assign one group to talk about Shakespeare, you assign another group to talk about another author, and they're responsible for talking to each other and educating each other. It creates a lot more meaningful interaction than just hearing a teacher lecture. And I'm a big fan of the student teacher. Student teacher, let them present. Give up the power. In a normal classroom, I like kicking back, watching them go to the whiteboard and asking them questions like I'm the annoying student, just to see how it is when they're up there and they're asking questions. So giving up that power, I love doing it. Can you give them the power on the whiteboard on your open LMS to go through something? Can you give them the power to explain a prompt or explain a lesson or read an excerpt and explain things? Giving up that power is huge. As you're thinking about activities and what's good, what's bad, what's face-to-face good for? Think about what are you going to be able to do in a face-to-face model and what's online good for. I think the little compare and contrast here on the screen will help you try to think about what do I want to try if I'm all virtual? What do I want to try if I'm hybrid? If we change, can I use some of the stuff I did in virtual for hybrid? Can I use some of the stuff for hybrid like for virtual? These are just some things to think about of what things are good for if you're in face-to-face or what you're online for. So just some ideas to think about depending what mode you're in. Certainly can adapt, but I think these are good things to think about as you're going through. These resources that I have on this next slide are just more in-depth resources and more detail on a lot of the stuff that's on my previous slides. These may just be accessible based on the way it was routed on here. It looks like it might just be accessible if I click on it from my desktop, but if Alan's going to post these, I might be able to send these. These are PDFs of just some more ideas. I have some test ideas, some different experiences. It's just more in-depth ideas going a little bit further than some of the things I'm giving you here right now. So if there's a way to do that, I'll get them out to Alan to post with these videos, but these may not be accessible on your end at this particular second. But again, just more details on a lot of stuff we're doing here. The last thing I want to talk about, and I'll take some questions. Your platform, everyone's using something different. All right. Your job, I think, as a teacher, before you go in there and even thinking about to what you did in your virtual mode, whatever platform you used, you got to think about a lot of this stuff. So this little checklist I'm going to give you here, just things I think about on a daily basis. When you open up that platform and how you're going to communicate information and present information on those first couple of days, you got to think about these things. Go through a test run with your department. Go through a test run with colleagues in different departments. What can and can't you do? What are you comfortable doing? What can't you do? Clicking around, getting familiar with your platform. How do I share my screen? How do I write on my screen? How do I take attendance? What's a camera and microphone situation? How do I mute them? How do I mute myself? How do I share my camera? I don't want them sharing their cameras. What do I do? All these questions you're asking yourself. How are you going to get them to interact? Like I said, can you do the polling feature? Can they chat with each other? We got to keep the chat professional. What if it gets unprofessional? Things like that. All these things are going on through your mind, come on a daily basis. How are you going to respond to questions? You know, are you going to do it ongoing? Are you going to, you know, wait till the end? Whatever you do, just think about it. How do you upload resources? How do I share resources? How do I make sure everyone can see the resources without constantly checking in and breaking your lesson up? How can I break them into groups? How are you going to toggle back and forth? You know, some of my early struggles here, you know, I'm pulling up my calculator, I'm going back to the whiteboard, I want to go back to the picture. You know, it's just all these things that feel like it takes forever in front of you, but it's important to be comfortable toggling back and forth between different resources and different presentations. And then, you know, how do you restrict things? So just a little checklist to think about if you haven't really checked out your platform. If you got a new platform or your school purchased some software, just some things to think about as you're planning these assessments and activities and all those stuff we talked about. All right, my final thoughts here. All right, some final thoughts, some final takeaways. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. All right, I'm in, like I said, day 5 or 6, I'm still overwhelmed. It's okay, we're all in this together. You got to collaborate. You have to. You got to have those teachers you lean on, whether you're old, young, new, it doesn't matter. All right, been around, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. We got to help each other. You got to collaborate with colleagues in different departments. Don't just gravitate towards your subject matter, because trust me, the way that other minds operate, you know, math, we're linear thinkers. Great. Other subject matters, they think differently, and you're going to need those ideas from them. The students know we're trying our best, right? They know there's going to be glitches. You got to just continue to be yourself. You know, they know we're trying. Don't go, you know, don't be, you know, just don't be fake. Be who you are, all right, and deliver good instruction. Like I said earlier, that awkward time is the best. It feels crazy, but it's the best when you look back at it and you talk to students, you know, years down the road. They remember more of those crazy, weird moments than they do the really important topics and content. If you don't try things, you're not going to learn how to be better. All right, you know, it's just you're not going to feel good about your chunks of lessons. You're going to have to plan more than ever. You know, it just is what it is. You're going to have to spend some time, find that time, weekly, daily, month, whatever you're going to have to do. You got to plan more. You're going to have to plan almost double, I would probably say. The cutting curriculum and pacing will be an ongoing battle. You know, it's going to be an ongoing battle. I'm lucky. I teach 3 of the same classes one day, so I kind of know after that first class my pacing and things like that. All right, not that those first class got, you know, bad instruction, but it's nice when that happens and you have a way to pace yourself and things like that. And just think how well versed of a teacher you're going to be, you know, if and when things go back to normal. You're going to have an arsenal that you're going to be prepared for no matter what could possibly happen next. You're ready to deliver instruction in some way, shape, or form. And I'll leave you with this quote. Leave aside all your worry about the present and all your anxiety about the future. Occupy yourself with what you have to do at each moment as it's given to you. Don't burden the day which is passing with doubts about the day to follow. We got a million thoughts in our minds. Our students have a million thoughts going on, trying to figure out the schedules of where do I got to be, where do I got to go. But just worry about what you can worry about, what you can control, and hopefully, you know, you can take away some things from this that will help you with some assessments, activities, and how to engage students and give them some feedback. So that is all I got. If you have some questions, we got a few minutes here. If there's anything specific that anybody wants to touch on or elaborate on, I'd be happy to do so.
I have a question, Bob.
Sure.
I'm at Salle Academy in Providence, and we're going back September 14th at a hybrid. So we'll have A through K one day, and then L through Z the next day. So is that something similar that you're doing for hybrid?
It is. I was trying to explain this to Alan when we hopped on. So it's similar breakup. I don't have more than 14 or 15 guys in front of me, same exact breakup. The only weird thing, we're on like a 10-day cycle. So me trying to figure out who I'm going to see, when I'm going to see them has been a little challenging, to be honest with you. Really, when you're trying to plan assessments to make things fair. But yeah, same breakup, but it's not like an every other day thing. So yes, it's going to be odd one day, even the next day. But then in that mix, there's a 9-period schedule where they go through their whole schedule. So it's not perfect, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even every day, which makes it a little confusing at first. But I think it's beneficial the way we're doing it. But again, it's only been a couple days, so I don't have a, you know, the kids seem to like it so far, minus trying to figure out, I think I missed your class. Yeah, you did. You didn't log in or you weren't there. Just, you know, there's definitely some hurdles, but yeah, very similar model.
Right. So, okay. So continuing with that thought, how are you're holding students responsible when they are remote? Because I mean, I also teach math, so I couldn't imagine doing the same lesson 2 days in a row or 3 or however. So how are you holding accountability for those students who are at home, and if they either have technology issues or, like you said, just forgot to show up or slept in, how are they going to get that material?
So it's happened already. And again, depending on your comfortability, the platform we use, Blackboard, we're allowed to record the sessions. I know that feels uncomfortable at first because, you know, who knows where the conversations in class are going to go. But that is an option that a couple of my other colleagues are using for that main reason. There's going to be kids out. There's going to be kids out no matter how we like to slice it up here. But recording the session has been helpful for some other colleagues. It's the other option. Obviously, you're going to have to meet with students, but we don't want to do that for, you know, if 4 guys are out because they're sick and things like that. What we're trying to do as well, if for some reason they're out, but they feel good enough to attend virtually, you know, some guys have been out for whatever reason, but they hop on virtual so they don't miss things. That's been a good option. But just trying to hold them accountable. You know, I try to post what I can in terms of notes and things like that. But I think the recording is really going to cover a lot for me. But it just depends if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Bob?
No, I use Edpuzzle and I love it. So it's a good thing to play around with because you know that they've watched the video.
Correct. That's the one thing I did get out of it.
All right, Bob, thanks so much for all your insight. And you've actually got started, so you have a little experience behind you for this year, because I think it is different. You know, in March, everybody was sort of thrown in suddenly, and learning curve was unimaginable in many, many ways. And I think people have had a chance to figure out what's out there, what they're comfortable with, what maybe they're not as comfortable with, a little bit of time to start developing some more lessons that may be more effective. I think your advice about just, you know, be yourself. There are going to be some mistakes. The kids know that you're trying, I think is really valuable, because I've always found that if kids believe you're authentic, they're going to respond to you and they're going to give you a lot of leeway in terms of, if you wish, making mistakes and trying to do new things, etc. So just thanks for all the insight and thoughts. For those of you on, this ends the actual current series of webinars on digital learning. We're actually going to have some offerings later in the fall during October, November, December, maybe into January. We're going to see if we have something lined up in September, but you can catch these things on the DINA website. We also have our Let's Talk series that are not necessarily instructional for the classroom, but on current topics that are important to all of us as educators. So we wish you the best. And eventually, since it's the last one, on the recording, this will get posted when our Director of Communications gets to it here as soon as possible. And look for them on our website. All right. Thanks a lot, Bob. Again, thank you for your efforts and best wishes to everyone.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks.